So if you wanted to, do that follow through, you mentioned having other teams, like having a legal team, having an IT team, like building up pretty much a force that can act upon this and keep tabs on it. If you had to give maybe like a top three list between the two of you, what are some of the things agencies, brands, media partners, like, what can they do to kind of button up everything and out of the gate ensure that they're protecting what they've got so that they don't have the sock on their back?
Yeah, I think this, this is like conversation for brands, right? And for brands, the ones that aren't like smaller businesses, they have huge IT team, huge legal team. So they have the force already in place. But, I don't know that everyone's in step with approaching something like this. Like, if I'm just on the legal side, I'm going to say, to make my job easy, I'm going to say no PII ever, no exposure. We're never sending it anywhere, never sharing with anywhere, do absolutely nothing with it. If I'm in IT and I am, doing things like SOC 2 type 2 compliance and security protocols, I'm probably going to say, I also never want to create any endpoints. I don't want to create any access. I don't want to create any connections to this data, because then I'm going to have to be on guard for the pipeline of data that I would theoretically.
The data hot potato is, I can see it floating amongst all of these departments.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think what we're painting is that it is certainly an uphill climb, and I think we acknowledge that. But I think, that being said, there are many brands, many brands that have reached this point of existential crisis some time ago, and they have pulled together the right task force, right, internally, made up of those groups that we mentioned and others, and they are have made a lot of progress and put in things like pipelines and processes to make sure that they are looking at everything from looking at PII, looking at state level legislation, CCPA, GDPR, looking at, hey, what is a kind of an outcome analysis of if we fail to protect PII, what is the impact, right? Just in terms of disaster planning, scenario planning, like those are like very relevant, realistic things to do. And I think most of the IT teams in working with the brands that we work with, I mean, there's a ton of privacy policy, data security measures, consent mechanisms that are in place. So I think it's very, very practical to get there. Like any good change, being a change agent, you do have to work on getting everyone to go there. The biggest thing I think that typically transforms organizations in the capitalist society that we are is typically a revenue opportunity, right? An opportunity to have a stronger weapon that allows you to create more incremental sales, more incremental lift, more incremental business. And so that is the single biggest thing to focus on, is when you're thinking about your first party data strategy and how to bring that into the new disrupted ad tech world. The conversation should always be, hey, we're pursuing this strategy to create an incremental lift in our sales and in our revenue. And by doing this, which we know no one wants to do because it is change and change is hard, we are creating a ton of value for our teams and a ton of value for the organization.
The only thing I think I'd add, and that was perfect summary, I think, of it all, is I think you can also boil a lot of that down to the need for a cross-departmental understanding of like what's the overall business case, what are we trying to achieve as a company as it relates to this data, and then what is each individual department trying to achieve, and then maybe what does PII look like to each department. Like you said, Amal, the IT team, SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, that expression of PII would look different than how the legal team's seeing it, and different how the product team or even the media team or something like that is seeing it. So I think, like you said, tight communication, dedicated task force, and just focusing on the business goals is the way to to really keep the communication clear.